Because it's times like these, with so much I fear, nights like these, we'll remember those stupid jokes. Good and bad and right and wrong, a story's made.
The next track is Face the Music, and to me it sounds so classic. I imagine it's almost like some of the indie records you would have listened to growing up. So what would that have been like? What would have been on at home? What have you discovered since? What's kind of really inspired you?
What in terms of what I listen to at the moment, they've done a lot of touring with me. They've just got a new album out, The Snuts. Brilliant band, brilliant live band. Actually, really good lads as well. There's none of that kind of guitar music pretentiousness about them. They're like dead sound. And also something else, another band that I took reference for on this record was DMA's. And it was their last record that they did with Stuart Price that I thought was really interesting. Now, when I started my solo career, I started with a Steve Aoki, a song that I did with Steve Aoki, and it was like a pop dance hybrid. Because of that, and it was right for me at the time, but that was me chasing radio, that's the bottom line. It was right for me at the time, but because I wanted to show who I was as an artist, I've kind of resisted any kind of dancey elements, or I did on that first record. And it wasn't until I heard that DMA's record and how Stuart Price had produced it. And of course, they're using some of these modern, trendy, radio, whatever word you want to use to describe it, sounds. But they do it in a really authentic way. It's not in there just because it's trendy, it's in there because it serves the song.
Yeah.
And I kind of had a little breakthrough moment with that, which is why I kind of dipped my toe in with other songs in that kind of dancier realm. But going back to Face the Music, that, you know, these kind of songs that do exactly as what they say on the tin, I am not the most sophisticated musical listener. I kind of like songs like this that have got that wall of sound, that will give you that energy. Again, it's easy to kind of imagine in the live context.
Oh, it's a festival song, isn't it?
Yeah,
Through and through,
definitely. But you still kind of got that sing-along chorus, but dressed up with, you know, with enough of a wall of sound behind it. And again, this was a song that was written, you know, almost picturing when there's that lull, maybe with something slightly slower on the tour show, you need to kind of slap people around the face, and this is that song, really.
What song was kind of the most difficult to get right? Was there one that you just kind of couldn't get it, and then eventually it clicked?
There's a song on there's so many different versions of this album. There's a song on one of the many different versions called Paradise. For whatever reason, it was like a production thing. I just didn't feel the authenticity until we got to like version 7 or 8, and we really got there in the end. I will say that because I had a clearer picture of this album, there's not really anything that stands out to me that was really, really difficult. I suppose that's more of like the post-production stuff where it's real fine details that you're working out. But also at some point, this is the thing that I'm sure everyone who writes music understands, at some point you just got to let it go, because you can spend forever looking at these kind of fine details.
Do you think maybe it didn't feel sort of such hard work because you are making now the music that you've always wanted to make?
I think that it's a good point, because
you're free, aren't you?
Exactly. Whereas, you know, there might be songs on Walls that maybe took a bit longer because I was trying to put more of myself in there, you know, when in reality it's just easier this time round, because like you say, this is who I am as an artist, so it doesn't take too much massaging, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They say bitter ends turn sweet in time.
And you share a lot of yourself in this record. Chicago, obviously one of the most kind of vulnerable moments on the record. How did you write this one? Where were you? Set the scene.
I wrote this with Dave Gibson, just me and him actually, and he was someone who actually throughout this process, he's the first person that I wrote with for this record. We did a lot of different songs together. Some of them made the record, some of them didn't. But he's someone who really, really understands me as a songwriter. Sometimes what I find challenging is I can see the picture, or I can hear the song, or I can see the concept in my head. And sometimes it's quite hard to articulate that because you've got such a clear vision in your head. And you just want someone else to be able to read your mind, to go, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And I've got this kind of connection with him where he really does, he understands what I'm saying. So that helps me massively as a songwriter. And this is one of those songs that when I've been speaking in interviews, I'm referencing my lyrical maturity. And this is not something I think I could have written on the last record, because I think, you know, it's a concept that I haven't necessarily heard before. I'm sure there is, but I personally have not heard that concept before. And it's just, you know, my bread and butter as a lyricist is honesty. And that is a very honest song. I will say maybe half of it, you know, is imaginative, and half of it based on personal experience, probably like most songs in reality. But this is Chicago's a song that, it is a special song to me, and almost not by choice, it just is.
Yeah, it's a definite standout for me, I think, just because lyrically it's sort of so honest. And I think it's almost the most pop on the record,
Definitely.
I guess, in terms of the structure, isn't it? I thought it was a nice sort of way to transition from Walls actually into this new album.
Exactly, yeah, that's kind of how I see it. You know, there's not really, it's not trying to be anything that it's not. And it's got that it's another one of those songs, it's got that kind of big sing-along chorus. But even from that first lyric, you know, I saw you had a baby, did you use any names that we liked? Like, it kind of hits you straight away. And I think it's important, because I have those moments like Face the Music where I'm being brash, and I can imagine the live show very easily. But it's important, obviously, to have shade to the light.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of layers in this album.
It's late now. I'm trying to find words to say.
All This Time, which comes next, the production on that has so much to it.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, I think Fred did a brilliant job on this. And again, this is somewhere where, you know, I know what I like, but this is, in terms of a production, it wasn't as if I had loads of notes to give on this, because it's a little bit more me taking a risk, as I said before, doing something that's slightly dancier. But for whatever reason, and I can't really put my finger on it, but I'd say it's in my top 3 out of the record, and which surprises me, because there's other songs that I think are more in line with what I like listening to outside the album. But there's just a really nice energy to it, and I also feel good about doing slightly dancier stuff when I kind of denied it for a while.
What are your other favourites then, if that's in your top 3?
So if that's in the top 3, it's gonna. Oh, it's hard.
It's hard, isn't it? They're all musical babies.
I shouldn't say it, but on first record, it might have been hard for me to pick 3 I like. No, that's not true.
Now he's like, I like all 16. They're all amazing.
Yeah. If I were to pick a top 3, I mean, the first 2 that jump out to me, and again, it kind of comes back to my musical sophistication, it's Silver Tongues and Out of My System. They're the most brash and the most energetic. They're the songs that make me the most excited about going on tour. But then there's other songs like Saturdays that I think kind of really pours out the emotion and kind of helps me shine as a lyricist. That's another song I keep coming back to.
Gotta get it out of my system. Gotta get it out of my head. I've lived a lot of my life.
Let's talk about Out of My System, because
Yeah.
riffs, energy, and just like the raw edge to your vocals in that as well. It's such a standout.
Yeah, I was really happy with the vocal on that, because it needs a little bit of rough in the vocal. A song like that, definitely. I love how short it is. It's like 2 minutes 20, really punchy. And it's, I mean, I've made it, so obviously I'd feel like this. But every time I listen to it, you just kind of left wanting more. That was a song, again, we started out with the guitar riff. I went into, I want to say I was definitely listening to something Arctic Monkeys. I want to say maybe Teddy Picker, maybe Dancing Shoes, one of these tunes. And I was listening to it on the way to that writing session, and I went in.
It makes sense, actually.
Yeah, and I went in and I said to the lads, Nico and Dave, who I was working with, Dave was on Zoom and Nico was in the room. I said, I'd want to write something as punk as I can get away with. And that's when Nico straight away came up with that really kind of punchy riff. And that riff kind of sums up the song, really.
Yeah.
That kind of danger and that kind of energy. And from the off, you know, when I listen back to Walls, it's songs like these that I missed out on. And I'm happy to have this kind of that kind of energy, that undeniable energy. And also there's an element of danger in there, and I think that's fun as well.
I think it's because it's almost more immediate, isn't it? And is that because of the way it was recorded? Like, where were you when you did the vocals? Is it kind of like you finished the show and recorded vocals straight away?
Exactly that. So we finished the song in London. Okay. And I'm pretty sure Dave would know better than me, but I'm pretty confident I was going to vocal it that day.
Right.
But then I got onto a couple of my mates and we were going on a night out. So like Dave was on Zoom. I was like, look, lad, we're going to have to find another time to vocal it. I'm off out. So we finished writing it and that was all done. And then I did have this idea that it'd be good to carry some of that live energy, even within the voice, post-show, and just try something out. So that it was out of my system that we did it with. And Nico came to one of the shows in Europe. Can't remember which show off the top of my head. And you've got so much adrenaline when you come off stage, and it's really difficult to kind of come down from that. And it's not always the best. Like, I wouldn't be singing a song like Saturdays after a gig, because that takes more vocal precision and you've got to be a little bit more specific in what you do. Whereas out of my system, it kind of needs that kind of live energy anyway. So that was something that I'll probably do in the future. It was kind of weird leaving stage and then going straight into singing, but I do think that energy comes across in the vocal.
Yeah, agreed. What a buzz. And you're known now for your live shows. Was it 500,000 tickets on the last tour? I mean,
apparently so.
Absolute scenes. Like,
yeah.
Is that where you feel best as an artist? Like, being on a stage, performing to your fans?
Do you know what it is? But thank God I do, because for years before I went on tour, that's how I defined myself. That was where my identity lived, is at the live show. But I'd not done it for so long that over time you start thinking, well, I hope that's who I am as an artist, you know. And it's not until I've had this full year of touring under my belt that everything about what I do, you know, there's times in my job where certain things don't make sense, or you're trying to read between the lines of certain things. At the live show, what you see is what you get. And it's people who've been, you know, incredible enough to pay money to come and see you. And then if you leave stage at the end of it and you feel like you've given them a good night, it's kind of as simple as that. And I really love the simplicity in that, because at times it's complex doing this in the industry and trying to, you know, read between all these lines. Whereas there's this kind of beautiful synergy between me and the fans, and that's at every show. I have been very lucky this year.
I think that's what's so special about live shows as well, isn't it? Although often when you're doing big tours like you do, it can be the same set list, can't it? But it's that exchange of energy, that particular night, those moments that can't be replicated.
Yeah, well, it's a good point, you know, again, and this is not a brag, even though it sounds like it, but yeah, I did like 80 shows this year, 80 plus,
wow.
And you'd think, you know, you would, when you put it like that, you would think doing the same set every night, there must be days where it gets, or times where it gets boring, but it really kind of shows the energy of the crowd that never for 1 minute am I bored on stage, because it's so undeniable, the energy between you and the fans, you can almost touch it.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I've always admired about you as well is that you take new bands with you, you know, on the road, whether that's on tour or with your festival, you know, given a platform, because it's so hard for new artists, maybe more than ever, to actually break through, especially in the live circuit. So the fact that you're doing that is great. So who have you been checking out recently? Who do you love?
Well, I'm absolutely obsessed with Stone. I was lucky enough for them to play at my festival earlier this year, and I don't remember the last time I've seen a band live and been that excited about what's to come for them. Just so much energy, so much charisma across the stage, great musicians, great live band. And doing all those things, you know, it's important to me, you know. There is an element, like everyone's musical career, that, you know, it was right place, right time, and there was some luck I had on my side. And because of that, don't get me wrong, I've worked fucking hard to stay where I'm at.
Absolutely.
But because of that, you wanna do your bit and help and give back. So, you know, I was lucky enough to kind of start out year one with that festival with that in mind, and then we did the second year this year. And now there's no doubt that's exactly what it is for me. It's an opportunity for a start for me to play festivals, because I've not been booked on one yet, so I'll just make my own.
Love that.
Yeah,
you know what? I'll just make my own. Whatever.
Well, yeah, then I can headline it. Happy days. But also, yeah, what was really beautiful about this festival for me was I watched all the bands side of stage, and just watching. I think maybe sometimes I'm naive in terms of what I think the average fan who follows me likes to listen to. Because from looking out there, they love what I love.
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting moment for me where, you know, because I often think about where I've come from and like where some of the fan bases come from in terms of One Direction and stuff like that. But, you know, I'm watching them listen to bands like Stone that are pretty alternative, you know, and very different to my set, but watching people really, really enjoy it, and that makes me proud, definitely.
Yeah, I remember seeing the Snuts Boys on the festival circuit, and after they played for you, and they were just saying, like, what an amazing crowd. It was just so receptive and open to new music.
Yeah, well, that's where I do feel I'm really proud of me fans in those moments, because, you know, sometimes, and, you know, people know, like, sometimes support gigs can be really, really tough and you feel like you're swimming against the tide.
Absolutely.
I just want to say thanks to all my fans at those moments, because it'd be fucking awkward for me. You know, if I'm like, yeah, I'd love Snuts to come on tour with me, and they come on tour and then they just get a shit reaction, it'd be like, fucking hell. But I'm quite the opposite. I'm so lucky, and they're a fan base who are willing to listen.
Yeah. And the fact that you've had your own festival, I mean...
Pretty cool, isn't it?
It's a dream come true,
yeah.
right?
Oh, definitely. That'd be like a dream I'd had for a very long time.
Yeah.
So to see it come to life has been amazing.
Yeah, where are you going to take it from here?
I don't know. I want to just do it every year until people stop buying tickets, essentially. But I want to work up to like multiple stages. I'd like to work up to multiple days, maybe some camping. Like, obviously long term, but like that'd be the plan.
I love that. Obviously, having your own festival must have been on the bucket list. What else is still on there?
I'm dead cliche like this, like I've got to do skydiving, and I've been like, there's been like 3 or 4 times where I'm supposed to do it, like either weather's called it off, or like lads I was doing with it couldn't make it, or whatever. But that's a must. I don't know if you meant specific to Korea, maybe.
We should have done this interview skydiving. That would have been
that would have been a move. Yeah.
Quite an experience, isn't it?